Hello friends, welcome to today's lecture on question banks. We'll do question banks from UWorld. So let's start. In this case, a 35-year-old woman comes to the hospital due to sudden onset numbness of the left arm and face. She has no weakness but has generalized headache, dyspnea on exertion and easy fatigability. She has history of well-controlled asthma. Temperature is increased. It is 99.8 degrees Fahrenheit. Blood pressure is 110 upon 60 mmHg. Pulse is 80 per minute. Light touched sensation is decreased in the left upper extremity and lower left face. Strength and reflexes are normal. Cardiopulmonary and abdominal examinations are unremarkable. No skin rash, and the laboratory results show low hemoglobin. Platelets is also low. Blood urea nitrogen is increased and creatinine is also increased. Normal range of blood urea nitrogen is 6 to 24 mg per deciliter. And the prothrombin time and the activated partial thromboplastin time are normal. There is numerous schistocytes on peripheral blood smear. Urine analysis is positive for hematuria and proteinuria. So what is the most likely primary pathogenesis of this patient's current condition? Looking in the patient's presentation, there we can see that there is case of nephropathy. The patient is suffering from fever. Also, the patient has some neurological symptoms as suggested from the light touch sensation being decreased in extremities. Also, the patient is suffering from hemolytic anemia as suggested by the schistocytes present in the peripheral blood smear, and also thrombocytopenia, that is the decreased platelet levels, that is 24,000, whereas the normal is 150,000 to 450,000. So all these five symptoms suggest that this is the case of thrombocytopenic purpura, in which there is impaired cleavage of von Willebrand factor due to deficiency of ADAMTS TS13. Thus, the answer to this question is B. So, this patient is actually suffering from thrombocytopenic purpura. Her left arm and lower facial sensory loss are consistent with poor sensory lacunar stroke, and her exertional dyspnea and fatigability are secondary to anemia. The patient may also develop cutaneous petechiae or purpuric lesions due to low platelet counts. TTP results from deficiency of ADAM TS13 or ADAM TS13, which is a von Willebrand factor cleaving protease. Normally, the circulating Willebrand factor, which is produced by megakaryocytes in endothelial cells, is released as large VWF multimers that are cleaved to their regular size by ADAM TS13. So normally the VWF is in multimers, and to cleave it we need the enzyme ADAM TS13, so that we get the monomer of VWF. If this VWF remains uncleaved, then it leads to prothrombic stage as it is more prothrombotic, and this results in microvascular thrombosis. Because of diffuse microvascular thrombosis, it results in thrombocytopenia, and microangiopathic hemolytic anemia also occur with schistocyte formation as erythrocytes are sheared by the platelet-rich thrombi. Prothrombin time and partial thromboplastin time are usually normal, as coagulation cascade activation plays a less significant role. The other options are incorrect because the IgA is responsible for Henoch-Schönlein purpura, which is also known as IgA vasculitis, and it is characterized by IgA immune complex deposition. Typically, it manifests as palpable purpura, renal disease, and arthritis or arthalgias. In this, the platelet counts are usually normal, but here we see that there is decrease, so it is not appropriate. Some features of this presentation could be explained by plasma cell dyscarrias such as multiple myeloma, renal failure, anemia due to bone marrow replacement, kidney injury, and Waldenstrom macroglobulinemia, which presents with neurologic symptoms due to hyperviscosity, autoimmune hemolytic anemia. However, the microangiopathic hemolytic anemia would be unusual in the cases of plasma cell dysuria, and therefore this is not the appropriate answer. In cerebral vascular accident, there would be, or a cerebral vascular accident would have been caused by plaque rupture and could have caused the neurologic deficit, but would not account for the concurrent hematologic and renal abnormalities. In choice E, the disseminated intravascular coagulation causes activation of the coagulation cascade, leading to consumption of clotting factors and platelets, and this would have uh, resulted in prolonged prothrombin and activated partial thromboplastin times, whereas in this case they were normal, so this was not appropriate. In this question, a 47-year-old woman, gravida 2, para 2, comes to the office after noticing a pea-sized lump in her right breast while taking a shower. Her medical history is significant for 3 pack years of cigarette used during her 20s. She underwent infertility treatment and in vitro fertilization for both of her pregnancies. The patient has no family history of breast or ovarian cancer, and a clinical breast examination confirms the presence of a firm fixed nodule in the right breast with a small patch of overlying puckered skin. Mammogram findings are highly suspicious for malignancy, and the needle biopsy reveals infiltrating ductal carcinoma. A right mastectomy and axillary lymph node dissection are scheduled. Overexpression of which of the following markers is most likely to be associated with aggressive disease in this patient? If you would have watched my previous video uh, of UVilt questions, there I have told you about the HER2 gene, which is mainly responsible for breast cancers. So the answer to this question is C, HER2. Human epidermal growth factor receptor 2, or HER2, also called ERBB2, is a member of epidermal growth factor receptor family. It is overexpressed in 20 to 30% of breast cancers. It is a transmembrane glycoprotein with tyrosine kinase activity that acts to increase cell proliferation. It is present in diminutive amounts in normal breast and ovarian cells. In breast cancer, HER2 overexpression is associated with poorly differentiated, rapidly growing tumors. HER2 status is used to predict therapeutic response to anti-HER2 monoclonal antibodies like trastuzumab. Other options were incorrect, as in choice A, overexpression of anti-apoptotic BCL2 protein is classically observed in follicular lymphomas, but it also occurs in a variety of other malignancies, including breast cancer. Unlike in lymphomas, increased expansion of BCL2 in breast cancer is associated with a favorable prognosis. Since here the prognosis was not that favorable but was poor, so this was not the appropriate answer. Next, in choices B and E, the breast cancers express high levels of estrogen or progesterone receptors, typically associated with improved outcomes. Activation of these receptors act as a stimulus for tumor growth. Therefore, anti-estrogen therapy, example aromatase inhibitors, tamoxifen, is used to treat hormone receptor positive breast cancer. Now, since in the question it was asked about the most aggressive tumor of breast cancer, it was not for the estrogen or progesterone related receptor overexpression breast tumors, because it can be treated, and thus this was not the answer. In choice D, overexpression of a mutated form of P53 is found in many human cancers, including the breast cancers. However, the degree of protein expression does not correlate well with clinical outcomes. Rather, the effect on prognosis are more dependent on the specific mutation, example, the nonsense or the gain of function. So on summary, estrogen or progesterone receptor positivity in breast cancer indicates expected sensitivity to tamoxifen and aromatase inhibitor treatment. HER2 overexpression in breast cancer suggests a more aggressive tumor that typically responds to therapy with the anti-HER2 monoclonal antibody like trastuzumab. In this question, a 56-year-old man is evaluated for increased fatigability, and his past medical history significant for diabetes mellitus, osteoarthritis, and severe aortic stenosis that required aortic valve replacement. His peripheral blood smear is shown on the slide below. So in this slide, we can see some abnormal RBCs. These are schistocytes. Further, the question asks that which of the following laboratory finding is most likely to be seen in this patient. So in hemolytic anemia, there will be decreased serum haptoglobin level. So the answer will be B. So on the smear, we have seen schistocytes or helmet cells. They are formed by the mechanical trauma to the erythrocytes as they circulate through the vasculature. They are most likely due to erythrocyte damage caused by his aortic valve prosthesis. Artificial or mechanical valves are more traumatic for RBCs than porcine prosthesis and frequently cause hemolysis. Schistocytes can also be formed from narrowing of the vascular spaces due to fibrin strand formation as seen in DIC or disseminated intravascular coagulation, hemolytic uremic syndrome and TTP. Hemolytic anemia due to intravascular erythrocyte destruction results in lab findings similar to those in other types of hemolytic anemias, including an increase in serum indirect bilirubin. Intravascular erythrocyte damage also results in free hemoglobin in serum, that is hemaglobinemia, and urine, that is hemoglobinuria, as well as increased serum lactate dehydrogenase. Haptoglobin is a serum protein that binds to free hemoglobin and promotes its uptake by the reticuloendothelial system. Haptoglobin levels decrease when significant quantities of hemoglobin are released into the circulation, as occurs with intravascular hemolysis. The other options were inappropriate, as in choice A. Increased serum iron occurs in hemochromatosis most classically, but increased serum iron can also be iatrogenic, and hemochromatosis does not cause anemia, but it is associated with cirrhosis and increased incidence of hepatocellular cancer, skin darkening, and insulin resistance. Hemolysis does not usually have a significant effect on serum iron, thus it was not appropriate. In choice C, increased mean corpuscular volume is a sign of megaloblastic anemia, which is most frequently caused by folate or vitamin B12 deficiency. The peripheral blood smear would have shown the megaloblastic anemia with hypersegmented neutrophils and enlarged ovoid erythrocytes. In contrast, schistocytes may cause decreased MCV due to small RBC fragments being erroneously counted by automated hematology machines. Thus, this was not appropriate. In choice D, a decreased reticulocyte count in the presence of anemia is characteristic of only aplastic anemia. In hemolytic anemias, the reticulocyte count is increased to compensate for the increased destruction of RBCs. Thus, it was not appropriate. And in choice E, a decreased serum albumin level is associated with cirrhosis, where due to liver damage there is decreased production. Or in the nephrotic syndrome due to increased urinary loss of the serum albumin and protein wasting enteropathy, where there is bowel loss of the albumin. Thus, it was inappropriate. Now, in this question, our 8-year-old boy comes to the office due to mass in the right mandible. His family noticed it a few months ago and now it has grown rapidly. He has no fever, chills, cough or weight loss, and the family recently immigrated to the United States from East Africa. He has no medical problem. Temperature is 37 and physical examination show a large tumor on the right mandible with palpable regional lymphadenopathy. A biopsy of the lesion is performed. The histopathologic examination shows a diffuse infiltrate of lymphoid cells with numerous mitotic figures, and the interspersed macrophages surrounded by clear spaces are also seen. The gene translocated in these lymphoid cells produces a protein that is most directly responsible for which of the following functions. Now, the patient's clinical presentation suggests that this is the case of Burkitt's lymphoma. And the Burkitt's lymphoma, in this there is a mutation in the MYC gene, MYC gene, which is responsible for transcription activation, and thus the answer is D. This patient likely has the endemic African form of Burkitt lymphoma, which primarily affects children and typically present as a maxillary or mandibular mass. The type of lymphoma is strongly associated with Epstein-Barr virus infection. On light microscopy, the Burkitt lymphoma consists of monomorphic, intermediate-sized lymphocytes with round nuclei, multiple prominent nucleoli, and vacuolated basophilic cytoplasm. A high mitotic index and high cell death rate are typically seen. Benign macrophages that phagocytize the resulting cellular debris results in tingling body macrophages, which are diffusely distributed throughout the malignant tissue. The clear spaces that surround these macrophages contribute the characteristic starry sky appearance of the Burkitt lymphoma. It's important, please remember. Then, the most Burkitt lymphomas demonstrate a translocation between the c-MYC gene on the long arm of chromosome 8 and the Ig heavy chain region on the chromosome 14. The product of c-MYC is a nuclear phosphoprotein that functions as a transcription activator, controlling cell proliferation, differentiation, and apoptosis. The other options were inappropriate because in choice A, the follicular lymphoma is often characterized by translocation between the long arm of chromosome 18 near the BCL2 gene and the Ig heavy chain gene on chromosome 14. The translocation leads to overexpression of the apoptosis inhibitor protein BCL2. In choice B, the mutations of DNA repair genes, example BRCA1 or BRCA2, are associated with breast cancer, ovarian cancer, Lynch syndrome, xeroderma pigmentosum, Fanconi anemia, and many other diseases, but not the Burkitt lymphoma, and thus it was inappropriate. In choice C, translocation between the cyclin D1 locus on chromosome 11 and the Ig heavy chain locus on chromosome 14 is characteristic of mantle cell lymphoma. This abnormality results in increased production of cyclin D1, a promoter of G1 to S phase transition during the cell cycle. Since it is involved in Burkitt's lymphoma, it was not appropriate. In choice E, translocation of the ABL gene from chromosome 9 to 22 results in Philadelphia chromosome, a typical finding in chronic myelogenous leukemia. BCR-ABL, the resulting fusion gene, encodes a protein that inhibits apoptosis while promoting mitogenesis and increased tyrosine kinase activity. It also does not have any relation to Burkitt lymphoma and thus is inappropriate. Now, this slide presents a classical Burkitt lymphoma cell with prominent nucleus and basophilic vacuolated cytoplasm. Now this slide presents with the classical starry sky appearance, which is seen in cases of Burkitt lymphoma. Here, as we can see that the macrophages has cleared some of the spaces in between by phagocytosing the cell debris, and they are known as tingible body macrophages, and around them are highly proliferative lymphomas, giving it a starry sky appearance. Now in this question, a 25-year-old woman presents to the physician with arthralgias in her hands for the last several months. The pain frequently involves her wrist and proximal finger joints bilaterally. It is sometimes worse in her wrist and at other times it is worse in her hands. The patient has no other medical problems and takes no medication. CBC reveals erythrocytes to be decreased, platelets to be decreased, and the leukocytes is also decreased. Further evaluation reveals proteinuria and red blood cell casts. Which of the following is the most likely diagnosis of this patient? So these findings are specific for systemic lupus erythematosus. The clinical symptoms of systemic lupus erythematosus include the fever, fatigue, and weight loss, symmetric migratory arthritis. It is important that it is symmetric, do remember. Also, it includes butterfly rash and photosensitivity, serositis of pleurisy, pericarditis or peritonitis, then thromboembolic events due to vasculitis and antiphospholipid antibodies, neurologic symptoms as cognitive dysfunction and seizures. Lab findings include hemolytic anemia, thrombocytopenia and leukopenia, hypocomplementemia, and antibodies as ANA and anti-DSNA and anti-Smith. These are specific for systemic lupus erythematosus. Also, there is renal involvement as proteinuria and elevated creatinine. The patient displays a number of symptoms characteristic for systemic lupus erythematosus, which is a chronic autoimmune disorder affecting primarily women of childbearing age, and it's highest among African American women. Hematologic abnormalities are common in patients with SLE and are frequently due to formation of antibodies directed against blood cells autoantigens, resulting in type 2 hypersensitivity response. Anemia in SLE is caused by autoimmune hemolysis, which develops due to formation of warm IgG antibodies against erythrocytes. It is characterized by spherocytosis, a positive direct Coombs test, and extravascular hemolysis. The pathogenesis of SLE-associated thrombocytopenia is identical to that of idiopathic thrombocytopenic purpura, and the antibodies against platelets are formed, causing their destruction, similar to idiopathic thrombocytopenic purpura. Leukopenia can also occur due primarily to antibody-mediated destruction of neutrophils, but this is less common. Immune complex deposition in the mesangium, subendothelial or subepithelial spaces cause lupus nephritis via a type 3 hypersensitivity response. Histopathology is variable depending on the site of immune deposition, but diffuse proliferative glomerulonephritis is the most common pattern. Urine analysis would show proteinuria and red blood cell cast, similar to what we see in this patient. Other options were inappropriate, as in choice A. Ankylosing spondylitis is a chronic inflammatory arthritis involving the spinal and the sacroiliac joints, causing low back pain. It is also associated with enthesitis, dactylitis, and uveitis. Enthesitis is when the joints get inflamed and become painful because of injury or overuse or some disease. And the patient's peripheral arthritis and renal findings make ankylosing spondylitis less likely diagnosis than SLE, and therefore this was not appropriate. In choices B and C, primary myelofibrosis and myelodysplastic syndrome are bone marrow disorders that are most commonly seen in patients over 50 years of age. While they can cause pancytopenia, the patient has multisystem disease including arthritis and nephritis. Thus, SLE is a more likely diagnosis. While vitamin B12 and folic acid deficiency can also cause pancytopenia, but this patient's history of concomitant arthritis and nephritis is more suggestive of SLE. On summary, the pancytopenia, that is decreased erythrocytes, leukocytes and platelets, is common in patients with SLE. It frequently occurs due to formation of autoantibodies against blood cells via type 2 hypersensitivity In contrast, lupus nephritis is caused by immune complex deposition within the glomerulus via type 3 hypersensitivity. Now, in this, a 43-year-old man comes to the hospital because of fever, recurrent episodes of fever, sore throat, despite multiple courses of antibiotic therapy. For the past several months, he has also felt run down and fatigue all the time. His wife adds that he bruises easily and had bleeding gums on several occasions. His temperature is 37.8. He has mucosal pallor, pharyngeal erythema, and multiple ecchymosis on his extremities. His peripheral blood smear is shown in the image below. So, which of the following chromosomal abnormalities is most likely present in the affected cells? From the peripheral blood smear, it is clear that it is the condition of acute promyelocytic leukemia, which is caused due to translocation of genes between chromosome 15 and 17. So, the answer to this question is D. So, this slide presents the peripheral blood smear with abnormal promyelocytes with OR rods. This is our rods, which are specific for myeloid leukemias. The patient has recurrent infections, possibly the reflecting neutropenia, pallor, anemia. Then ecchymosis demonstrate thrombocytopenia with a peripheral blood smear that shows several abnormal myelocyte precursors with rod-shaped intracytoplasmic granules called R rods. This presentation is characteristic of acute myelogenous leukemia, and the M3 variant of AML is acute promyelocytic leukemia, which is characterized by the presence of promyelocytes on smear and is associated with disseminated intravascular coagulation, leading to bleeding, thrombocytopenia, prolonged prothrombin, and activated thromboplastin time. Affected cells exhibit the cytogenic abnormality of T1517. The cytogenic change represents a translocation between the retinoic receptor alpha gene on chromosome 17 and the promyelocytic leukemia gene on chromosome 15. Fusion of these two genes produces a trimeric gene product, that is PML/RAR alpha, which codes for an abnormal retinoic acid receptor. This abnormal fusion gene inhibits promyelocyte differentiation and triggers the development of APML. The management is with all trans retinoic acid, which is a derivative of vitamin A. The other options were incorrect because the T or translocation of 814 are associated with Burkitt lymphoma, where there is translocation between c-Myc proto-oncogene on chromosome 18 and the Ig heavy chain region on chromosome 14, and this leads to increased production of the oncogene due to frequency with which the Ig gene is transcribed, and this was thus not appropriate. Translocation of ABL gene from chromosome 9 to chromosome 22 is characteristic of chronic myelogenous leukemia, that is T922, which forms the Philadelphia chromosome and results in the formation of a new gene, that is BCR-ABL, whose product has tyrosine kinase activity. Thus, it was also not appropriate. In choice C, the translocation of T1114 is characteristic for mantle cell lymphoma, which is a B cell malignancy, and this translocation results in activation of cyclin D gene. In choice E, the deletion of 13q is one of the molecular defects which is seen in chronic lymphocytic leukemia. All in summary is that the presence of rod-shaped intracytoplasmic inclusion known as our rods is characteristic of many forms of acute myeloplastic leukemia, and the M3 variant of AML, that is the acute promyelocytic leukemia, is associated with cytogenic abnormality of T1517. Now in this question, a 70-year-old female complains of easy fatigability, exertional dyspnea and weight loss. She also complains of frequent falls. Physical examination reveals symmetrically decreased vibratory sensation to the lower extremities. Hemoglobin is 7.8 gram per deciliter and a peripheral blood smear shows hypersegmented neutrophils. Which of the following is the best treatment for this patient? low hemoglobin with hypersegmented neutrophils and some of the neurological manifestation as vibratory sensation to the lower extremity all suggest that this is the case of vitamin B12 deficiency anemia. So the best treatment will be giving exogenous vitamin B12 to the patient. Deficiencies of folic acid and vitamin B12 are the most important causes of megaloblastic anemia. Both of these vitamins are required for DNA synthesis and erythropoiesis. When there is deficiency of either of these vitamins, the cell division is delayed, though the cytoplasm develops normally. Thus, due to this, the cell enlarge and is known as megaloblast, but they do not divide. The bone marrow is hypercellular in megaloblastic anemia, but the megaloblastic erythroid precursor cells are rapidly destroyed in the bone marrow and few differentiated large RBCs are released into the circulation. In severe megaloblastic anemia, 90% of erythroid precursors are destroyed without ever entering the circulation. Vitamin B12 and folic acid deficiencies cause similar hematological pictures. However, neurological dysfunction is seen only in patients with vitamin B12 deficiency. This is because vitamin B12 deficiency also causes axonal demyelination and degeneration. In late disease, the neurological dysfunction may be irreversible. The main sites of neurological involvement include the peripheral nerves, spinal cord, mainly the posterior and lateral columns, and the cerebrum. Decreased vibratory and position sense are early signs of vitamin B12 deficiency. Patients experience ataxia and recurrent falls because of compromised proprioception. Importantly, neurologic abnormalities can occur in vitamin B12 deficiency in the absence of frank anemia. Treating megaloblastic anemia due to vitamin B12 deficiency with folate alone could worsen the neurological dysfunction. An RBC mean corpuscular volume of more than 100 FL is suggestive of megaloblastic anemia. However, RBC macrocytosis can also occur in liver disease, hypothyroidism, and alcoholic liver disease. MCVs greater than 110 FL are typically seen only with vitamin B12 and folic acid anemias. On peripheral blood smear, there is macrocytosis, hypersegmented neutrophils, and a large bizarrely shaped platelets. The presence of even a single neutrophil with more than 6 lobes should raise the suspicions of megaloblastic anemia. The medications listed in the other choices are not used for the treatment of megaloblastic anemia. This is all for today. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please do subscribe and share.